So a lot of people, they have this idea about bats. It's based on like horror movies, vampire movies, and whenever you see like Halloween decorations, there's always bats involved. Bats are thought of as like a creepy, kind of scary animal.
Well, that's all part of just not understanding. In fact, one of the big problems for bats is that, out of the more than 1,400 species in the world, the vast majority of them, we hardly know a thing about them other than that they've got a name. And they fly erratically. They live in places that people often consider kind of spooky, the basement or the attic or the cave. And we don't know what they're going to do next because they fly so erratically and they're associated with the night. I mean, even people who work at night aren't trusted as much as people that work in the daytime.
That's true, right? That's true. Night shift people are kind of creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these bats that we have in Austin, is there more than one species?
At least 99% one species under the bridge. There's probably two species there. One's the cave myotis that usually lives in caves, and the other is the Brazilian free-tailed bat.
And what's the most common?
The free-tailed bats.
So that's the one, when you see the big swarms, most of them are the Brazilian free-tailed bats.
Right.
So is that an invasive species?
No, not by any means.
So why is it called the Brazilian free-tailed bat?
That's a good question. Species often get named by where they were first discovered. And the species was first described by specimens discovered in Brazil. Then it was discovered later that it was found all the way up into the United States. And there were subspecies named. It was thought originally that there was a different subspecies in Mexico that came up into Texas and a third subspecies in Florida and the Gulf region. And each of those subspecies, the first one was described in Brazil, so it was Tadera brasiliensis, and then Tadera brasiliensis mexicana from Mexico, and so on. But then a genetic study was done and found that they're so broadly mixed genetically that you couldn't separate out subspecies, and so they went back to the original name, and it's now called the Brazilian free-tailed bat, which is kind of a pain for all of us that knew it for many years as the Mexican free-tailed bat. But that's just the way of genetics. Sometimes I like the common names even better than the scientific because they don't seem to change as rapidly these days.
So, and what is the other bat that's very common here?
It's not very common.
Less common, but prevalent?
Yeah, the cave myotis. It's a slower flying, more agile, maneuverable bat. The free-tailed bats can fly thousands of feet above ground, and they can travel at, get this, with a tailwind, they can go 100 miles an hour.
What?
100 miles an hour. And our bats from the bridge could easily be feeding clear down on the coast at some nights. I've watched on Doppler weather radar. We can watch them really well on radar. And I've watched where they come out of, let's say, Bracken Cave down near San Antonio, and we see the front band of moving bats crossing 4 to 5 counties in 12 minutes.
Wow. I had no idea. I thought they were, like kind of like bird speed, like a regular bird.
Bats are by far the most maneuverable, best flyers in the world. They can do things that neither birds nor insects can do in flight.
And why is that?
They don't have fixed hard wings. Like insects, the wings are made of chitin and they don't bend that much except at the joints. And birds' feathers aren't nearly as flexible as the skin on a bat's wing.
Wow.
Actually, the skin on a bat's wing, it's 2 layers, and that skin has been rated as 19 times tougher than a surgeon's glove.
Wow, really?
And what's really cool is even if they get damaged badly, it's amazing what their healing powers are. Sometimes the bat can even have a broken wing, and the swelling around the break will act like a cast and will hold the bone in place where the bat still is able to fly and survive until it can recover.
So these bats that we have the fast-moving bats that are the Brazilian bats, and then you have the other bats which are more maneuverable, but they don't go as fast?
That's true. And these bats tend to feed in different types of places.
And the fact that those Brazilian bats can make it all the way down to the coast, and then they come back to the bridge at night?
Well, I'm not saying they make it all the way to the coast. The trouble is we haven't yet done good enough tracking to know.
Can we put like a little GPS band on a bat, or is it too big?
Yeah, we can radio track bats. We'd love to radio track them when they migrate south and see where they're going, but it can be a real problem trying to track a bat at night across the U.S.-Mexican border without getting shot down by somebody. I was down looking for bats in the daytime one time with a friend who was an ex-aircraft Navy pilot, and we were in his private plane looking for bats down low along the New Mexico-Texas border. And first thing we knew, we got forced to land by drug agents that had overtaken us. And when we landed, we were surrounded by guys with guns thinking they had really made the catch of the year, somebody dumb enough to fly in the daytime with his drugs. And they were very disappointed to find out we were just bat people.
So when it comes to bats around the world, how much variation is there? I know that there's some really large bats in Asia, right?
There's big variation. There's, yes, large bats in Southeast and in Asia.
What's
Africa.
the biggest bat?
The biggest bat has a wingspan of almost 6 feet. I have a colleague who swears that the biggest ones sometimes actually get to 6 feet.
What is that bat?
Flying foxes. There are 200 kinds of flying foxes. Some of them are small and some are big.
Look at the size of that sucker.
These are really neat bats. And it's not just these great big bats, but one of the world's smallest mammals is a bat. The little bumblebee bat from Thailand weighs a third less than a U.S. penny.
Look at the size of that thing. That's in the Philippines? Is that what that is? Is that what it says, Jane? Yeah.
These flying foxes are in the Philippines, yes, but they're in a wide area of the old world tropics. We're very concerned about them because, for
Go back
one,
to that photo with the guy next to it, so we can see it. The perspective. No, the one. Yeah, that one. Look at that. That's crazy.
I think it's a little too close.
Well, that's
forced perspective.
That's kind of like holding your fish out a bit in front of you to exaggerate.